Hello and welcome back to Busby Gaming. I'm Tony, and today we're going to do something entirely new. At least entirely new on this channel. Excuse the noise upstairs, that's not the new part. In fact, anybody who's watched this channel in the past knows that old Thunderfoot up there is quite the loud stomper. But what I'm planning on doing is a little bit more of a podcast themed show every Sunday. Now, this particular show right now is not live because I'm waiting on equipment to get here so I can actually do live videos. I want to start streaming on like YouTube gaming and things like that, just to kind of break up the monotony of the Let's Plays, because I know that I've been kind of like jumping all over the place. I do retro games, I stick to a certain console for a little bit for the giveaways, but I feel like I'm a ever evolving channel and content creator here on this platform, and I just want to give you guys a variety of different shows and options to watch and be a part of. So if this isn't necessarily your thing, that's fine. Maybe something else on this channel is. Maybe another person on YouTube is more entertaining to me. There's a lot more entertaining people on YouTube than me. But I'm always honest with you guys. I'm not gonna bullshit you. I'm not gonna put on a character. I don't do funny voices unless it's my actual voice, because I do get creeped out in some of these games that I play. But no, I'm not a character. I'm not gonna act any different in real life than I do in front of the camera. So just to let you know that that's what we're gonna be doing here. This is gonna be the kind of format we're going with. Minimum editing. There's not gonna be jump cuts and things like that in the videos moving forward for this platform anyway. The Let's Plays and things like that are still gonna be edited for time. This is gonna be more of an open book. You're gonna hear noise in the background. I'm sorry, I'm down in the basement of a very old house, and my son is a very active toddler, and he likes to run and jump off pretty much anything and everything, and he's just a crazy kid. I wish I had like a fraction of his energy, because I would be like set. I just watch that damn kid and I get exhausted. But anyway, we're gonna start off this podcast. I'm thinking about calling it Reset. I looked up. There is another podcast called Reset, but it is a Spanish channel. So I don't know. Maybe do an English version of that. I mean, I don't understand Spanish, so I don't know if his content is aimed at gaming and entertainment, or if it's just a basic podcast. But this is going to be more aimed at video games with name Reset. You push a reset button, yada yada yada. Anyway, now we're going to start with some gaming news. This week, I already did a video on this, but we're going to touch base on a little bit more of the games and information behind them with the Xbox event. Now, again, I've said this in the last video, but I'm not a fanboy of any particular console. I like them all, I play them all, I own them all, and I see the pros and cons of both. I actually think that they're more similar than they are different, and I kind of laugh at you fanboys, because I don't know, man, you guys are really, I don't even know if you guys are really passionate like that, or if you guys just really enjoy pissing people off. But I just don't see the point in fighting over a video game console. I never have. Even when I was a kid with Super Nintendo and Genesis, my one brother bought one, and my other brother bought the other one, and I played both of them. I like both of them, and they were similar. It's just that some consoles had different games and ran differently and things like that. But anyway, I'm kind of starting to get off on a tangent here. I'm not a fanboy, was my original point on that one. But the most recent event for Xbox was both very entertaining, and it was kind of cool to see the stuff that is going on with them. But overall, I mean, it was kind of disappointing. It was really just kind of meh. I mean, it's not like horrible. Like, they didn't really fuck up anything. Like, all right, so PS5, they kind of screwed up, I think, because they showed all these awesome games, and they showed that GTA 5 trailer, and I still getting people messing with me about that video because they're like, oh, well, you spoke about the event for 5 minutes and then you went off on a fucking 8-minute tangent about GTA 5. And I'm sorry I did that, but yeah, that really just that really pissed me off the way they did that. But nothing like that happened on this one. They are doing things with this current generation of consoles where they're updating things and making the games run faster and look better on the Series X. But the first game that they showed that immediately made me go, was Halo Infinite. Now, I said this in the video that the game just looks like it's running on current gen hardware, but the frame rate is pushed up, and some people, I'm getting mixed signals. Some people are saying it was 60 frames a second. Other people are saying it was 120. I put it on my video editor and it picked it up as 60, but I mean, that could be just my video editor is kind of crappy. I don't know, man. It looked good. Like I said, it's not horrible looking. There was like a little bit better details in some places than others, but it didn't strike that chord as being a next-gen game. And another thing that I looked up and kind of found interesting is that every single one of the games that were announced had the Xbox logo on it, the Game Pass logo on it, and the Windows logo on it. So every single game that Microsoft announced at this Xbox event could be played on a PC. So it kind of makes me think, as a gamer who owns all the consoles already, and I'm gonna end up eventually getting this game this console because I do want to collect them all. But at the same time, I'm not really in any rush to get a Series X because I own a PC. If all these games are gonna end up on the Game Pass, then I'll just stay subscribed to the Game Pass and PS Now, and hopefully that, it's just weird. It's like, if you have a gaming PC, you don't need to upgrade to these consoles, what it seems like. And, I think that's kind of cool, but because there's, some people can't go out there and get a good gaming PC. To get a decent gaming PC to play these games, we'll say, at 1440p, at 60 frames a second, you're gonna need probably between $1,000 to $1,500 PC to play these games in that kind of fidelity. And a lot of people don't have that, and I understand that, but I can't understand how, because I keep seeing Xbox show up with the 120 frames a second and 4K gaming. It's like, how are you doing that? How is that a possibility? Because they can't sell this thing for $1,000. I highly doubt that the Series X is going to be $1,000 rig. But the truth is that for it to do even like 60 frames, 120 frames at 4K resolution, it would be a $2,000 PC to do that. Now, I realize that, consoles are more focused and, linear path. They're designed to do just a certain number of things, but you notice that all these consoles are starting to slowly become more PC-like. So, just getting a 2080 graphics card, we'll say an NVIDIA graphics card, that's going to be between, $800 to $1,200, depending on what vendor you go to. If they want to develop their own, they could probably save some money. But odds are, I think they're going to be doing the same thing that they did with 360, and they're going to be selling the consoles at a loss right off the top. So it may be like a $1,200, $1,500 console that they're going to sell for $700. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like they they're banking on you getting the console and the Ultimate Game Pass or the Game Pass in general to kind of mitigate that loss, I think, is what they're going to end up doing, because any kind of console that is going to have the ability to play at those frames per second at that resolution, I don't think it's going to be cheap. I mean, I'm betting it's going to be $599 at the lowest and $799 probably. I mean, like, I'm trying to think between the components of this console, selling it for a loss and giving gamers something. Now, I keep hearing those two things, the 120 frames and 4K at the same time. Now, if it were to be, you could either have 1080p or 1440 at 120 frames, or you can have 4K at 30 frames, then I kind of understand that. Okay, now we're getting a little bit more doable, you know, but having 4K at 120 frames a second, you know, it's kind of just, you know, they only have TVs that do that, you know what I mean? Like, there is certain TVs that play 4K that have that kind of refresh rate, but those TVs are expensive as shit too. I mean, it's I've seen a couple that are like 4K TVs that can have a really high refresh rate and they look beautiful, but you're talking between like $2,000 to $5,000 for that kind of TV to play 4K at that high of a refresh rate. So these consoles are certainly trying to push themselves to be a part of the future, because obviously they're going to probably stick with these consoles for about, I would guess, between 6 to 10 years is what this next generation is going to be. So they're trying to probably future-proof that a little bit by making it, you know, able to run on TVs that aren't out yet. So my point is, there'll eventually be a 4K TV that runs at over 220 or over 120 frames per second, or hertz, or whatever you want to call it, has that higher refresh rate. And they'll probably be cheaper over the years. I mean, I know 1080p TVs when they first came out were fucking ridiculous. Now you can go to Walmart and buy them one for like $180 or less. So, I mean, they will drop in price. But I feel like, you know, this console is just aimed at the people that don't have a gaming PC and they want to play these awesome games. Now, I don't feel that as a console shouldn't have to play at 120 frames per second. It just doesn't. I don't know. I've never gotten why consoles trying to go for that higher frame rate. I mean, 60 FPS is perfect for a console. You don't really need to go crazy and go to 120, but it's not really going to be that big of a difference to an average person playing these games. But yeah, I mean, that was my first kind of like gripe with it. I was like, well, why the fuck is Halo looking like an Xbox One X game, but it just has a higher refresh rate? You know, that's not really, you know, a good enough reason for me to jump ship to a new console. And that was the point I was making in that last video. And, you know, they did announce some games, but it's like, you know, a lot of these games didn't have much gameplay to them. They were just, they were trailers, and they just didn't show nothing. You know, it was kind of weird. Like, the best way I can describe it is all these new console generations when they first came out at E3, and I realize E3 is probably going to be a thing of the past now with this virus going on. I mean, it's certainly affecting my content. Normally, I would have somebody else with me doing these games, like I said in the past, and these podcasts in the future, I'm going to have other people doing them with me as well. But we're going to be like Han Solo and go by ourselves for a little while anyway. But I'm kind of like darting in between subjects here because this is a whole new format to me. Usually I can edit things down and switch them around, but we're just going to dart from one subject to another. But that being said, we're going to go back to talking about there was just a lot of game trailers. There wasn't really much gameplay. And if you're trying to sell a console, gameplay is king. I'm sorry, but it's like I want to see what I'm going to be buying in action. And they really didn't do that very much. Halo was a notable one. They did it with a little bit with Psychonauts 2, and here and there. It just wasn't, and PS5 was the same way. That, don't get me wrong here. Both consoles have not come up with their A game. You're selling people a new generation of hardware. You're selling gamers new hardware. And they just kind of seemed like they phoned it in. That's what it seemed like to me. They're just, there was nothing big, nothing worth the hype. Nothing showed up and stole the show. There was no show-stopping video games. There's nothing that people are really talking about in a super positive light days later. And that was like what I said, where, these console generations at E3 used to be very big hype trains. They used to be crazy, like you're like, oh man, did you see what PlayStation did with this, and this? Oh, well, the Xbox did this, and this. Oh, this game was announced for PC. Oh my God, the graphics look so incredible. Oh, it looks so realistic. None of that shit happened. None of it. All just was like, yeah, okay, there was nothing. There was no new IPs that made me go, holy shit, that looked awesome. I gotta get that day one. There was no sequels that were announced that made me go, oh hell yeah, I'm getting that day one. There was just nothing exciting about any of these games for PS5 or the PC, or the well, it basically is a fucking PC. All the games are gonna be on PC or the Xbox is what I meant to say. It's just, I don't know, man. I do not know. And there was another thing that popped up. I mean, Cyberpunk has been in the back burner. Like they were really hyping it up at some of these events, but it was missing at this last event. Yeah, it has something to do with them maybe just trying to hype the next generation of consoles, but Cyberpunk 2077 is a game that a lot of people really wanted to see. They really want to see more of it. They want to get more info because it's going to be a couple months before that releases. Actually, it's going to end up releasing toward the month or so before the next console generation. So I think it's coming out in September. So like October, November, the next console generation is going to be out. So it kind of makes me wonder, it's like you are going to release this big game that a lot of people are happy about, and you're going to do it right at the end of the console generation. I mean, kind of seems a little weird. Like, oh, I'm going to go out and buy this $60 game, but I got to save up money because I got to buy a new console. What am I going to do? I'm still going to get it. I'm going to get the Cyberpunk 2077. I don't know why the fuck I'm having such a hard time saying 2077. What the hell is wrong with me? But it's just really strange that they were hyping that game a lot over the last year or so, and now they have an opportunity to announce that, hey, on the Series X it'll run faster and better and yada yada yada, it'll be enhanced and all that market hype bullshit. But the game was absent, aside from a little joke that appeared in Grounded, where they said, the biggest game of the year, is Cyberpunk 2077. I fucked it up again. So you gotta wait for that game. And this is the smallest game of the year or some shit. They did a little throwaway joke, but it was absent. And it kind of made me wonder, like, why not just at least show some gameplay? Give a little bit of a teaser, because I think this is the last conference until that game releases, so it could have used a little bit of a push. But yeah, there was nothing like. I think that some of these older franchises could have really invigorated this console generation launch if they would have paid attention to it. Like if they, for instance, like if they would have brought back like the Legacy of Kain franchise and did a remake of that, or Blood Omen, like they did Blood Omen 4 or 3, whatever the fuck, I think it was Blood Omen 2 was the last one. I don't know, it's been so damn long since they made a good Legacy of Kain game. It would have been cool to have something like that. It would have been cool to see like a photorealistic Tomb Raider or a Crash Bandicoot. Would have been cool to see, you know, him being all like furry and fuzzy and shit. There's just like a God of War game would have been awesome. I mean, they already have the textures, they have the world built, you know, the engine is made. It shouldn't be that much time to develop another God of War game. They could have just threw a teaser out there like, hey, it's coming in 2022. It's just they had so many opportunities to just show something really awesome to get people hyped up for this new generation, but they just fell short. Both consoles did, not just one or the other. Both of them did. They both had potential to make something awesome, to show us something really cool, and it was like little snidbits throughout there. I think Ratchet and Clank was the last one I talked about, where he goes through portals, and each world on the other side of that portal is a fully rendered 3D environment. It's a full new map. It's not just something in the background painted, you know, and you're only allowed in this little area. It's like they're fully rendered maps, and they're snapped in instantly. Snap, snap, snap. It's just done. They're loaded in. And the Medium showed something like that with this one, where it was like, you know, it's rendering two different worlds at the same time. So it's really showing off those the SSDs in both consoles. But it's just they could have shown more of that. They could have did different games. It's just they kind of seem to just kind of, like I said, phoned it in. And both consoles, Sony and Microsoft, are guilty of that. I guess that's the thing that pisses me off the most. And I know I really don't talk much about Nintendo because currently I had a Nintendo Switch, but the fucking thing broke on me, so I don't have a Nintendo Switch anymore, so I can't really critique Nintendo that much because I think the most current console I have right now is a Wii or Wii U. I don't even have the fucking thing hooked up. But the thing that kind of pisses me off about Nintendo is that they're leaning back on their older franchises and trying to reinvigorate those, and they're selling the old retro games and putting them on the Nintendo Store marketplace. And excuse me. And the thing is with that is that, you know, and it's the same thing with the consoles that came out, the minis, like the classic PlayStation Mini and the Super Nintendo Mini and the NES Mini and all that. And the same thing is with this store, and that is that they don't have the entire library of games available. And I realize that those are certain license problems and things like that. They can't do this, they can't do that because license holders or whatever. But the weird thing is that these games were, when they were licensed, it was for a physical copy. So the thing is, they should be able to still sell a digital copy of the game. I don't know why it would be so fucking hard. If Nintendo owns these games, maybe they don't have the right to distribute them anymore, or maybe they're just trying to roll it out and be like Disney and all these fucking games are locked in the vault. But there's so many games that were in all the Nintendo game libraries, the Sega library and the PlayStation library, that just didn't make it onto the consoles. And I really would like for this next generation to just be able to have the entire library. You know, it shouldn't be that hard for PlayStation to have the entire libraries of PS1, 2, 3, and 4 available for purchase. Even if it's not available for purchase, it would be cool to be able to play them. Like, I should be able to take, we'll say, Silent Hill on the PS1, pop that disc into a PS5, and boom, it works. I shouldn't have to fucking purchase my game again. But see, that's the thing with being a classic game collector and getting these new consoles. Technology moves forward, our retro consoles don't. So what ends up happening is you got to get adapters and things like that. Like my N64, I had to go through 2 different adapters to eventually get it to run on my 4K TV. It's a pain in the ass. I would love to be able to just go into my Nintendo Switch, purchase a game, and just fucking play it. But at the same time, I shouldn't have to pay a ridiculous price for that fucking game. You know what I mean? It's an old game. It's old. I shouldn't have to pay $15, $20, $30 for a game that came out in the 1990s. I shouldn't have to. Those games should be available for $1 to $2, $3. You know, they should be cheap. You're getting a digital copy. You're not sending me the real fucking game in the mail. You know, this is not a collector's item. It's a files. It's stored on your fucking end, and you're giving me access to it to download it on my end. And I gotta pay you between $15 to $30 fucking dollars for that, for the privilege of playing my games that I already fucking own physically that don't work in these older consoles. Cartridge is the best example of that, because you know they can't put cartridge slots in, you know, modern consoles. It just wouldn't look sleek enough and all that. But these disc-based games like the new Xbox should be able to play everything from the original Xbox through the 360 through, you know, the Xbox One X and the new stuff. I mean, it should be able to do all that because they're disc-based, and disc-based games are a lot easier to read than cartridge games because it just pops in the tray. Boom, bam, Bob's your uncle. It works. But these console games that, you know, on cartridges, it just sucks that that's the only option to play them without costing me another arm and a leg to get the fucking game. I have to download it and pay. You know, it's like I can fucking play it on my old console and have it be kind of, you know, pixelated and shit like that, but you know, I kind of want to see it in all its, you know, glory. I want to see it have smooth textures and, you know, running at a good steady frame rate, because there's some games on these older consoles that just, they weren't optimized very well, so there's certain things that happen and the screen slows down and things like that. So that's remedied in these, you know, digital downloads of these older games on the newer hardware, because the newer hardware is more powerful. But it shouldn't cost that much. I shouldn't have to pay that much, or it should just be a service. Like if you pay for the Game Pass, I think it's like $14 a month, which is fucking ridiculous in my opinion. It should be like $10 a month. And Sony has the PS Now, and I don't know if Nintendo has anything, but we'll just say that they do. You know, you should do $10 a month for each of those. So you get Nintendo, Xbox, and you get PlayStation for $30 a month, and you should have access to the entire fucking library digitally. Even if it's just streaming, you should have access to that entire library. But no, they're just like, you know, well, we have 200 plus games. Like, they don't give you a fucking exact number, and they keep switching them out. Like, you might find a game that you haven't played. Sorry, I bumped the mic. Maybe you heard that, maybe you didn't. But you might find a game that you haven't played since childhood, and you're like, fuck, I'm going to check this out. You know, you pop, well, you're not popping then, but you push the fucking X button, A button, square button, whatever, you know, you push a button, and the shit launches, right? So you play the game, you're getting into it, you're loving it, and then it leaves the server the next day, and you're like, what the fuck? I found that game finally. Ever since I was a kid, I've been loved playing that game, but I forgot the name, or I broke it, or my fucking dog ate it. I lost it in the move. I loaned it to a friend, and he was an asshole and stole it. You know, there might be a million reasons why you never played that game again. Now you finally had the choice to do that on the streaming service, and then they just got rid of the fucking game. So you're like, okay, well, cool. I'm going to go online. I know the name of the game now. I'm going to buy it, and it's fucking $2,000. Cool. Awesome. That's really nice of you to put that fucking game that I love, dangle it in front of my face for this fee that I pay you every month, and you keep moving games in and out of this fucking list. Just put the games on the fucking list and keep them there. I mean, storage is getting, especially digital storage, is getting larger and larger every fucking year. There's no excuse why they can't just have the entire fucking library of the games, consoles available online. There's no excuse. and they just keep rotating them out, rotating them in, and it's like, I don't know. It's like they seem to get off on fucking with people, and it's like you could say, oh well, they're optimizing it and doing shit like that. It's like, you're not optimizing it. It's a fucking list. You should have, like, I can't tell you. It's the same thing with fucking Netflix. You know what I mean? Like, Best Buy, or not Best Buy, fucking Blockbuster, you ran them out of business, okay? Netflix fucking destroyed Blockbuster, okay? But what they do is they have a fucking movie or a series on Netflix, and it doesn't have the fucking sequel, but it has another one, the sequel. Like, alright, here's the example here for Netflix, okay? So I watched Tremors, the first Tremors movie. I'm like, cool, I'll watch Tremors 2. So I go on to Netflix, I search Tremors 2 because they have Tremors 1, they have 2. They don't have 2. You know what they have? They have Tremors 3 and 4 though, but they don't have 2. Why the fuck do you not have 2? You have 1, 3, and 4. Where the fuck is 2? Oh, well, it's on a rotating thing. It was on there for 5 years, and we got rid of that and gave you 2, 3, and 4 in its place. Well, why can't you just fucking keep 2? Why can't you keep all the fucking movies and just let me pick the ones I want to watch? And now I'm not picking on Netflix because both consoles do, or not, I'm stuck on consoles again, but both company, or all the digital companies do that. Amazon does that with Prime. Hulu does that, even though Hulu's more for TV shows, but Hulu can kind of suck a dick because I fucking hate paying a monthly thing, and I discover a show like, was it Matt Pat on TV Theory, or he's the game theorist, but he was doing a video about The Good Place. It was Ted Danson and Kristen Bell, and I was like, man, that looks like a really interesting show. I have Hulu. I'll check it out. I go on there. They have the final season, only the last 5 episodes though. Why can't you have all the fucking episodes? Why have the show on there at all if you're only going to show us little tiny little bits? And Hulu, it was initially meant to be like a catch-up site. Like if you missed an episode or two, you can hop on there and you watch it and you're caught up. But now with streaming, how it's taken off, and everybody and their mom has a fucking streaming service, they just don't want to keep shit around. I don't want to give you the full library, and I don't know why. It's like you're paying a monthly fee, you should have all the shit. Simple as that. And here's the best part. Here's the real fucked up part. The shitty icing on the shit cake is that if you go to another country, you say you have a VPN, and you go to Canada, you know what? They'll have Tremors 2, and they'll have Tremors 1, but they won't have 3 and 4. You know what I'm saying? Like, they have different videos for different parts of the world, depending on where you're at. And it's like, I don't understand it. Why can't you just give everything? Have the full library. And the only thing I can think of to do that is because they want to soak more money from you. You know, they might be like, well, if you want to watch this exclusive thing, yeah, you got to be a part of us or whatever. But it's like, I just don't understand. That's the only thing I could think of is optimization, and maybe they run out of the rights to be able to stream them or something. But it's like, if the rights holder, okay, say I owned Tremors 2, and that's just the example I'm going with because I just got done talking about it for a little while. Say I owned it. I have not creative control, but I have the ability to say where it goes, where it's distributed, who watches it, yada, yada, yada. Now I can hold on to my rights and not use them and just let them collect dust. I don't gain any money off of it. I just don't. There's nothing. There's not a single fucking thing I can do with it. There's no money to be made from it. Netflix comes along and is like, hey, I'll give you a nickel for every time someone watches that movie, or there'll be a bonus. We'll give you it's gonna be more than that. It's not gonna be a fucking nickel. Probably like, yeah, I'm making money, so here you go. Now the only thing I could think of that would stop me from doing that is if they're like, well, since we're paying you for us streaming it, you can't allow anybody else to. Then I can be understanding where they're like, okay, well, I'll give it to you for 6 months and then I want it back. But the truth of the matter is that, nobody should be stingy like that, It's like, now all these streaming services have, like, networks. TV networks are now doing streaming services. You got CBS and NBC and ABC and fucking Disney. Everybody has a fucking streaming service, and it's like cable TV is fucking dying, so they're going the way of Blockbuster. But it's just that's what makes sense to everybody now. Instead of paying for a fucking TV package, you pay for a streaming service, and people don't realize that, since everybody's coming up with a fucking streaming service, they're not going to put these TV shows on Hulu or Netflix for very much longer. And this is a weird thing. The Big Bang Theory. I like that show, and I'm probably going to catch some bullshit for that. But, yeah, that show was funny, in my opinion. I enjoy watching it. And, I think it was CBS or NBC, or either way. One of those owned it. I think it was CBS, but I could be mistaken. But they have a streaming service. And, notably, The Big Bang Theory is absent. Big Bang Theory, I think, is going to be on HBO Max or some shit like that now. But it's like, when the fuck was Big Bang Theory ever on HBO? Why the fuck is it on HBO now? It doesn't make any sense. And it's just, I don't get it. I don't understand. It's the way of business, I guess, but, I get that with certain content, but back to video games, if you own a game that came out on your console, you should be able to sell it regardless. The entire library of a said console should be for sale. That's just my opinion, but, I can't think of a reason other than, like I said, the rights holder doesn't want to, exclusively give it to them. But if they did it for that Nintendo console, then they shouldn't have any kind of problem giving exclusive rights to it. But anyway, I've said it before in the comment section of some of the videos, but I feel that that these consoles, this console generation is probably going to be the last console generation of physical consoles. I got a feeling that it's going to end up being, PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo. They're just going to end up being a app on your desktop. I guarantee that's where it's going to be heading. I don't have any inside information, obviously. It's just, I think that's where it's going to ultimately head. And I mean, if you don't believe me, it's already happening now. I mean, you can download the PS Now app that's sitting on your desktop. You can play PlayStation games, and Xbox already has it. Nintendo doesn't. I don't know if they have it. I think I already said something about that already, but that's where it's heading. And people don't believe me, but I'm telling you, man. I mean, if you went back in the day, we'll say 10, 15 years ago, and you said that Blockbuster and Toys R Us are going to be out of business because the internet's going to take over, people would have laughed in your face. They would have been like, yeah, right, okay, sure, yeah, right. And lo and behold, that's what happened. They both went out of business, and they're saying now that, Toys R Us is going to have a little bit of a comeback as an online storefront or open up small stores or some shit like that. But I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. This virus that's going around, you're not allowed to talk about it on YouTube because I guess people are sensitive, but I really don't give a shit. I mean, we're already about 40 minutes into this video anyway, or into this podcast, whatever you want to call it. And this virus really changed things, the way things work. And I think it shows the most in people who had office jobs. They're all working from home. These guys that are making our video games, and they're working on them. They're developing these games from their house, from their living room, because they have a dev kit right there. They have the internet, and they have the ability to do it. So that's what they're doing. My fiance, I'm not going to say where she works because, the internet's full of weird people, and I don't want to put anybody in danger, especially anybody I love. But she is working from home because they don't need to have them in the office because of the virus. So, and they say, they told her, like, end of September, you can come back to work. You can come back to work in the office. And everybody that's working from home right now, they were all like, why? What's the point of coming back to the office? It doesn't make any sense at all because the landscape has changed. They can work from home now. So there's no point in trying to get people to rush back to work that can work from home. There are a certain number of us that got laid off. They can't work because of this virus is so widespread, and I feel for those people. But there's another amount of us that had to work through it. You couldn't work from home. Your job was considered essential, so you had to go out and expose yourself to the dangers of this virus and continue forging your path through it and bringing home the bacon and putting it on the table for your family. I respect that too. But it's like overall, this virus kind of just brought it down to show that things change in such a way that nothing is guaranteed anymore. There is no guarantees anymore. Walmart, I could say Walmart will not be around in another 5 years, and you may laugh at me about that, but people were delivering groceries from this app. I can't remember what the hell the app is called. My fiance used it a couple times. But they deliver groceries to your house. Yeah, I mean, they have people going to the stores for you, basically, and they're filling up a cart and paying for it based off what the payment information you gave or something. And all that shit. But it's just like, how long before that Walmart is just a building, just another no-name building, and the employees work there, but they're just filling online orders and delivery drivers take them out to the customer's house. How long before that becomes a normal thing? And the weird thing is that's not new. In smaller towns all across the country, people were delivering groceries to people's houses. So this isn't a new occurrence, and it's just, I don't know, everything's changing, man, Things that seem possible or impossible, I guess I should say, things that seem impossible or seem like they're never going to happen kind of seem to have a way of happening when you least expect it. Now, I feel this video is kind of getting to the point, or not video, I keep referring to it as video, it's a podcast. It's kind of hard to talk about this shit with one person. Usually you'd have somebody looking stuff up and, doing, the juggling of the behind the scenes. That way you could have one person talking, another person bringing up topics, and that's what makes podcasts move through a little bit quicker. Last thing I want to touch on is the rise of Facebook gaming apparently is threatening other streaming sites like Twitch and things like that. They're getting to the point now where it's like everybody and their mom has a Facebook, and you're following gamers that you like on Facebook anyway. So instead of just directly streaming to Twitch or Mixer or whatever, why don't I just put it on Facebook Gaming, and everybody that follows me can just watch me live on there. So again, it's like another thing of the big eat the small, so I got a feeling that's what's probably going to happen there. I think Twitch and other streaming services, unless they're directly linked to your console, like if PlayStation has a streaming service, Xbox has a streaming service, Nintendo has a streaming service, they may be the only way that these other little independent streaming companies are going to stay afloat. Because Facebook is basically making a monopoly of the streaming service. And it kind of sucks because there is these certain people that stream on these sites and they get contracts and they make money. That's how they live. That's how they make a living. So they end up not they might get something from Facebook. They might have some kind of contract with Facebook. But that's the thing too, is that, you know, if you sign a contract with Facebook, can you play Nintendo games? Can you play PC games? Can you play PlayStation games? You know, it's like you have to go specifically to that streaming service. They're trying to make a monopoly with these streaming services, and I don't know, man. It's like it affects everybody. You know, online digital distribution of content affects everybody, far and wide. You know, if you use your Xbox predominantly for watching videos, I don't know why you wouldn't. I mean, Roku works just fine, but if you know, for instance, I know with myself, I was using my Xbox as a gaming console, my PlayStation as a gaming console. That's how I used it by my fiance, since we at the time didn't have a smart TV. She would use them to watch, you know, YouTube videos and Hulu and Netflix and all that shit. So it just kind of makes you think, like, you know, what are they gonna do? You know, these networks eventually they're gonna be like, well, we have our own streaming service, so why would CBS let Hulu have a TV show? If it's a hit TV show, why not just have it be exclusive to CBS app? You know, that's how it's going to happen. So, you know, there's going to be an app war or streaming war, especially for gamers. I got a feeling it's going to come down to Facebook gaming and the rest of the streaming gaming community. Which, I mean, you know, it could be good or bad. You know, you might end up making a good deal for yourself, but the viewer is what the problem is. You know, that's where the problem is going to lie for the viewer. Like, if you have two streamers that you like watching, but they're on two different things, and it's like, well, I mean, it depends on how you watch. If you're watching on PC, you might be good, but if you're watching from your Xbox or your PS4 or 5, then you may not be able to watch the streaming service from a different place. You know, and that's what's going to be shitty, is that you get locked into these exclusives, and the exclusivity of the content is what ultimately is going to end up fucking the gamer, fucking the consumer. It makes things better for the content creator, not the content creator, the rights holder or the person distributing the app, because, you know, it's like, hey, well, I got the bigger numbers, I got more people, but it just screws over people like us who want to watch it from a certain way. But yeah, I mean, that's where that's heading for that. It's coming down to who's gonna beat who, and that's the problem that we're eventually gonna come down to with the generations of console. There's never gonna really be a definitive winner, because, like I said, next console generation is gonna be apps on your desktop, and people will still claim fanboyism. They'll be like, well, my app's more popular than yours. And that's the thing, man, is that nobody really is a fanboy of anything other than consoles. I mean, at least not in my circles. You know, like, nobody says, you know, Netflix Master Race. You know, it never fucking happens. So it's like, why are we doing this, you know, PC Master Race fucking bullshit? Why are we saying, oh, PS5 is better and Xbox is better? I think, honestly, Xbox and PS5 are both not, they're not sucking me in. I mean, I'm not in any way right now. I'm not going, you know what, I'm gonna go out and pre-order. It's just not a necessity to me. I mean, like I said, I've been doing a lot of random retro videos lately. I do modern videos here and there, but at the end of the day, man, it's just like You know, it's just what the fuck? What would be the point aside from exclusives? Which, you know, at the end of the day, people were like, you know, Xbox didn't really have that many exclusives, and you're right, Xbox didn't. They really didn't, and that's what really kind of pisses me off the most about their event is they had all that time, and they have all these studios, and they barely had like 20 games to show, and this is supposed to be like first party content, and I don't know, man. I don't know. I think the worst case scenario that we're heading to is a situation similar to the video game crash of the 80s. Now, or the, what was it, early 80s? I can't fucking remember. You know, the thing that ET caused to happen because the game sucked so fucking much that the video game industry as a whole just fucking collapsed. But the truth is that maybe, honestly, we need that. Maybe we, today, as gamers, need another video game crash, because people think about it as this like horrible event. Yeah, there was a little bit of a lull for a couple of years where after the video game industry crashed, but the NES, which is arguably the first stepping stone of where we are today in the popularity of gaming, was that original Nintendo Entertainment System, and that came after the video game crash. So like, if the video game crash happens, we'll say 2023, the video game industry it's hemorrhaging money. Every company from, Microsoft would be spared. Sony, they fucking crumble and Microsoft absorbs them. Because, Microsoft prints its own fucking money. I'm sorry to say that, but they do. I mean, Sony's big too, but let's say even the opposite, like fucking Bill Gates goes belly up and Microsoft fucking crashes, Sony absorbs them, or maybe Nintendo comes out on top. We'll just say that, because I don't really praise Nintendo very much, and they deserve some praising. So we'll say Nintendo wins everything. They absorb Xbox and PlayStation, and all you have is the Nintendo Master Race. At the end of the day, the video game crash happens, everything gets consolidated and consumed by Nintendo. Nintendo releases another console and reboots the entire video game industry, just like they did with the NES. And see, here's the thing, is that people think, Nintendo is always the third place, the wars between PlayStation and Xbox and Nintendo is just kind of like, the truth is, Nintendo plays it safe because they don't have to risk anything. They don't have to. Nintendo was a company well before the video games. They were making cards and shit. It's like they've been around long as hell. They're just like Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon wasn't just a fucking TV show. It used to be a magazine back in the early 1900s. I think even the late 1800s. It's been around for a long time. It's stood the test of time. It's weathered the worst of it all, and still here. So I guess I'm going to end this podcast saying, do you think we should stay the course as gamers and ride this storm out? Maybe this is just an overall shitty start to another generation that, honestly, we don't even really need, because there's not really that big of a visual jump of this generation to the next generation. We're just gonna ride it out and see what happens? Or do you think that maybe the video game industry is headed for another crash, and Nintendo will rise like a phoenix from the ashes and reboot the entire gaming industry yet again? Now, see, to me, I could see both things happening. Likely, because it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, nothing is gonna fucking make that collapse. It's gonna keep going the course, and what's gonna happen is we're gonna probably see more lower-end games, and games that are supposedly like named AAA titles are gonna be fewer and fewer and you're going to start seeing more independent studios come in and make video games. And I hate to say that because, I mean, I do like indie titles. I really do. But AAA games like God of War, Red Dead Redemption, you know, those are the games of the year. Those are the games you talk about. Those are the games that you love. Indie games are fun, awesome, and they're cool stepping stones. And some of them end up becoming so popular that their budget is through the roof for a sequel. And people are fucking running around upstairs. I'm sorry. It's probably a good time now just to get this podcast to be over with. But those are basically, I think, where we're heading at. We're heading at, you know, staying the course and making things crappier and crappier. Maybe they'll recover, maybe they won't. Or the worst case scenario, it's gonna fucking crash, and from its ashes, a new gaming community, pop culture pop is gonna happen. One of those two things. But anyway, if you like content like this, please let me know down in the comments below. If you guys have anything you would like to discuss about in our next podcast, like I said, I'm going to try and do this every Sunday. These are not live right now, so don't feel bad like you think you missed something. I really don't think you're going to feel bad anyway, because really it's just me fucking rambling for an hour. But what do you guys think? I want to hear you sound off in the comments below. Tell me, what are the topics we talked about? What opinions do you have? What do you want me to talk about? What do you want to discuss? If you had the chance to be sitting here right next to me, what would you want to talk about? What would you want to tell the entire gaming world about Xbox or PlayStation or Nintendo? Tell me. Tell me all about it. Tell me about the streaming service. You know, is Netflix the master race or is Hulu better? I'm just kidding. Please don't do the fanboy shit. I really don't want to hear it. If you love your console, cool, but have an open mind and just realize that there are consoles out there that people like just as much as you. And there are people out there like me that like to laugh at fanboys like you because we have both consoles and realize that they're more similar than they are different. But anyway, please feel free to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one. See you.